Surah Ali Imran.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون.
Now we will watch a short video about SESRIC. To begin our opening ceremony, I would like to give floor to Mr. Fadi Abdullah Farasin, Assistant Director General of SESRIC, to read the welcome remarks of His Excellency Nabil Dabur, Director General of SESRIC. The floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished participants, dear guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to this seminar on the situation of street living and street working children in the OIC member countries. I would like first to begin by thanking our host, the United Arab Emirates, for their generous hospitality and excellent organization of this seminar during the Dubai Expo 2020. I would also like to extend my appreciation to the General Secretariat of the OIC and OIC institutions for holding a series of events during Dubai Expo 2020 and for their collaboration for the organization of today's seminar. My special thanks go to the speakers and panelists for allocating their precious time to be with us today. Distinguished participants, dear guests, we have watched together a short video about SESRIC. So let me add a little bit about our center, which is the Statistical, Economical, and Social Research and Training Center for Islamic Country, which is a subsidiary organ of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, operating in Ankara, Turkey since June 1978 as the economic and Social Research Arm, Statistics Center, and training organ of the OIC. The center has been engaged in statistical data collection, collation and dissemination on and for the member countries, undertaking the preparation of research papers, reports, and studies on various economic cooperation and developmental issues, and organizing of training programs for the benefit of OIC member countries. Distinguished participants, dear guests, children in general and street children in particular are vulnerable to a number of risks. The growing number of street children in the major cities of the world requires urgent and effective policies to ensure that children are off the streets and are in a safe, healthy, and protected environment. Therefore, the topic of this seminar is not only important from the perspective of socio-economic development in OIC countries, but also critical for achieving inclusive development without leaving no one behind. The 57 member countries present over 1/3 of the population below the age of 15 in the world. Some children living in OIC member countries are among the most fortunate, while others are among the poorest and most marginalized in the world. Although many OIC countries have shown significant progress regarding children's issues, street children are still high in number and experience multidimensional challenges. Those challenges not only affect their today's well-being, but also limit chances to reach better standards of living in future, such as by limiting their participation in education and access to health care services. Over the years, OIC countries have extended significant efforts to improve the rights and well-being of children. Street living and street working children have been specially mentioned in the implementation plan of the OIC 2025 Program of Action under Goal 2.1 and 3.7, which call upon OIC member countries to improve policy framework to address social and emotional needs of women and children. This call underlines the need to examine and understand the economic, social, and political factors that are intertwined with the street children phenomena to formulate policies, laws, and programs at the OIC level to address this issue effectively. As CESREC, we have undertaken a number of activities in the domain of children. CESREC prepared a report on the state of children and presented it during the 5th Islamic Conference of Ministers in charge of childhood. The report provided a comprehensive analysis of the state of children in OIC countries by looking at the latest data and trends. CESREC also prepared a chapter on the theme of social, health, and psychological rights for the draft of the OIC strategy for the well-being of children in the Islamic world, which was elaborated during the first OIC Ministerial Conference on Social Development in 2019. Our Outlook report on street children in OIC countries also identifies the major causes and risks that street children in the OIC member countries face, with the aim to provide some key policy recommendations to member countries in dealing with the street children issue. On the same subject, CESREC organized a research seminar with the participation of experts and academicians to raise greater awareness and propose solutions to the street children issues across the OIC in 2019 in Ankara. CESREC statistical database, OIC Stat, hosts 13 indicators on children as of 2021 that helps us to get some highlights and insights about the state of children in OIC countries based on country-level data. Distinguished participants, dear guests, it is my firm belief that the discussions and deliberations in this seminar will provide some guidance to the OIC countries in developing and adopting targeted measures with a view to addressing the challenges faced by street living and working children. I am also confident that the discussions will help us to identify a number of areas to enhance intra-OIC cooperation in this domain. I would like to thank once again our distinguished speakers and guests for participating in this seminar, and look forward to welcome you to our forthcoming seminars to be organized by our center during the Dubai Expo. I wish you very productive deliberations. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farasin, for the remarks. Now, since the representative of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation General Secretariat could not join us today, I will read the message of the OIC General Secretariat. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. His Excellency, the representative of the United Arab Emirates, dear experts, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to take this floor on behalf of OIC General Secretariat in the opening ceremony of this important seminar organized by CESRIC to convey our deep appreciation to CESRIC for inviting us to join this event. The importance of this seminar stems from the fact that it is organized in the context of the implementation of the resolutions adopted by the various CFM sessions, OIC sectorial ministerial conferences, and the OIC Plan of Action 2025 in the domain of child well-being. Improving policies framework to address social and emotional needs of women and children is the one important goal of the OIC Plan of Action 2025. The first session of the Ministerial Conference on Social Development in OIC member states held in Istanbul, Republic of Turkey, on December 2019 addressed important issues including matters relating to child well-being. The Ministerial Conference called on the member states to develop social protection mechanisms for children to keep them away from delinquency and addiction toward developing awareness-raising strategy on forms of economic and social exploitation of children. In the framework of implementation of the OIC-related strategies and resolutions, OIC member states and OIC relevant organs have exerted efforts to protect the rights and well-being of the children. In this regard, I would like to take this opportunity to address General Secretariat's sincere thanks to CESRIC for preparing a comprehensive report titled Situation Analysis of Street Living Children and Street Working Children in OIC Countries. This report, I am confident that certainly will help the decision makers and stakeholders in OIC member states to identify the challenges faced by the OIC member states in this field and suggest solutions. It is my sincere belief that this seminar would provide us with new ideas and initiatives to further intra-OIC cooperation in the domain of child care and child protection across the Muslim world, to make our collective work more effective, as well as to improve the standards of living of our children. In conclusion, let me avail myself of this opportunity again to thank CESRIC for organizing the important seminar that will offer opportunity to the experts, practitioners, and academics from OIC member states, OIC relevant institutions, and international organizations, partners, to discuss the root causes leading children to the street and the risks children face while living or working on the street. Finally, I would like to emphasize the need for intensified coordination in implementing our related projects and activities so that we can record further success in our march towards increased prosperity and well-being of children in our countries. I wish you successful deliberations, and I thank you for your kind attention. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Distinguished guests, we will now proceed to the seminar. For this, I would like to invite Mr. Masar Hussein, Director of Economic and Social Research Department at CESRIC, as the moderator of the seminar. The floor is yours, Mr. Hussein.
distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you all. It is with great pleasure that I welcome all of you to the panel discussion on the situation of street working and street living children in OIC member countries. We have an excellent and diverse panel to discuss and learn about the state of children who live and work on the streets, major factors responsible for this phenomena, as well as various socio-economic policy measures and innovative programs and initiatives that have been carried out at the national, regional, and international levels to enhance the welfare of this vulnerable group in our societies. Our panel is scheduled for 1 hour, and we are going to listen to 3 panelists. Our first panelist is Dr. Jem Tintin. He is physically present here. I would like to invite him to join me here. So, Dr. Jem Tintin is a senior researcher at Economic and Social Research Department of CESRIC. He is a trained economist with a master's and PhD in economics. He has been associated with CESRIC since 2013, and during this period, he has been involved in preparation of numerous research reports, papers, and strategic documents on social development in OIC member countries, including the street working and street living children. Today, Dr. Jem Tintin will share with us insights on the status of street working and street living children in OIC member countries, major risk factors faced by them, and the efforts of OIC and its member countries to improve their well-being and welfare. He will also highlight the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on street working and street living children, and also share some policy recommendation with us to think and ponder about. So I would like to invite Dr. Jem Tintin to make his presentation. Floor is yours, Dr. Jem Tintin.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Mr. Moderator, thanks for giving me the floor to make this presentation. And also I would like to thank the Expo Dubai team and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation for facilitating the organization of this important seminar on street living and street working children. Today, my presentation will be focusing on our recent report on the situational analysis of street living children and street working children in OIC countries. And in this short presentation, I will try to highlight a couple of important points, not only about my presentation, but I hope that these points will stimulate discussion in our panel session with the participation of distinguished experts from ICESCO and ILO. And in my presentation, I will start with an overview of the children's situation in OIC countries, and then I will continue discussion about the definitional issues about street children, and also highlight some numbers about the street children in OIC countries. In this presentation, I would like to also say a few words about the efforts of the OIC countries and the OIC in general. Of course, discussion without touching upon the COVID-19 pandemic will be incomplete nowadays. So therefore, in this presentation, I have included a couple of slides about how COVID-19 pandemic has affected the situation of street living and working children in OIC countries. I will conclude with a couple of policy recommendations. Since our Assistant Director General, Mr. Farasin, has mentioned about something about CESRIC, and also we have watched a video, I skipped this slide about CESRIC, but it is a subsidiary organ of the OIC based in Ankara, and it has been operational since 1978. Now, in this slide, I want to set the stage because throughout this panel discussion, we are going to talk about the OIC countries. So therefore, I believe that it is very good to start with the map of the OIC because if you look at the world map, we see 57 different member states from different continents. So they are not only different in terms of their geographical location, but also in terms of their level of economic and social development, but also in terms of their problems and challenges. But also we are aware of that they have a lot of commonalities in terms of problems, in terms of policy experiences, values, and history. So therefore, we are talking in general about a diverse group, but there are a lot of commonalities. So therefore, now these countries are under the umbrella of the OIC. As mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we have published numerous reports on children, state children, and youth, which are all highlighting different issues related to children and youth in OIC countries in depth. And we are also aware of that the children are amongst the most vulnerable segment of the society. And when it comes to the street children, even they are most vulnerable and they need protection and they require a lot of policies and measures to improve their well-being. So when we are talking about street children, usually we are talking of a group of children who are working or living in the streets. And these groups are usually not homogeneous. They have different needs and expectations as well as some different challenges. But of course, there are some common risk factors and common challenges which I will highlight in upcoming slides. Sometimes showing or presenting some pictures are much more important to tell a story. About statistical figures, data are important, but sometimes pictures are more important because these pictures are showing that how their situation is desperate. And intentionally, I have put a couple of pictures from different geographical locations of the member states, such as Southeast Asia, such as Africa. So therefore, what we see in this picture are some desperate street working or living children under very tough conditions. Even living as an adult person under these conditions is difficult. For these children, the life is a kind of nightmare. They have a lot of challenges, and of course, their future is under risk. So now let me share with you a couple of slides regarding the overview of children's situation in OIC countries. In here, what we see is that the number of children in OIC countries increased by about 23.5% between 2005 and 2020. The OIC countries in total representing about 26.5% of the world's population. However, when it comes to children, they are representing around 32% of the all world's children. This means that the OIC countries as a group has a relatively young population which are consisting of children, and therefore the increase in this number of children in OIC countries requires additional policies and measures to develop their situation. However, what we are also aware of that the resources and the income of these OIC countries, especially those of low-income OIC countries, are not increasing in this fast pace. So therefore, there is a mismatch between the resources and between the growth in the children's population. So it is one of the reasons why we are seeing that increasing number of children in the streets in different OIC countries. So also I would like to say that we have a lot of challenges in the OIC countries, but also we have a lot of progress, especially in the domain of children, in terms of improving their well-being and in terms of improving their social and economic status, such as the OIC countries achieved to reduce the child mortality rate over the period 2000 and 2018 from 100 deaths to 56 deaths per 1,000 births. And also in terms of education enrollment and completion rates, which increased around 10 percentage points in the same period. So these just basic figures from different domains, from the education and from education and health sectors, are giving us some ideas that the OIC countries overall are doing well and exerting a lot of efforts to improve the situation of children. However, despite all this progress, the OIC countries as a group are lagging behind non-OIC developing countries and developing countries in most of these areas of concern, especially related to children. And especially, I want to highlight here that we have 22 OIC countries listed in the category of the least developed countries. So therefore, especially this group of countries have limited resources to address the needs of street children, and therefore it is not that much easy for these countries to develop comprehensive social policy measures to address the needs of people. So because of these limited resources in several OIC countries, what we see is that still 1 in 17 children in OIC countries cannot reach the age of 5, and unfortunately they still die before their fifth birthday, and a lot of children experience nutritional deficiencies. Literacy rates and school drop are illiteracy rates and school dropout rates are quite high in a number of OIC countries, as we see in Figure 3, for instance, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, like Chad, Niger, Guinea. They are in a very difficult position, especially, for instance, youth literacy rates are quite low. But on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, we have a number of OIC countries like Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. The literacy rates are quite high. So therefore, in fact, this, for instance, Figure 3 is highlighting that there are some OIC countries which require extensive efforts to improve the situation of children and youth, but also it is something indicating that there can be really a good cooperation, especially among the member states in different domains, that the knowledge and experience of these countries can be transferred to these other countries through the intra-OIC cooperation. So therefore, we sometimes look at the pictures or figures from different angles, which would really help us to understand different aspects. In here also, one of the negative aspects related to the well-being of children in OIC countries, what we see is that high prevalence of child labor and high prevalence of violent discipline. Especially what we see in terms of child labor in the sub-Saharan Africa, we see really high level of prevalence. And therefore, what we can see in this picture, for instance, in Figure 4, is that really there are some, let's say, regional disparities at the sub-regional level in the OIC group, such as South Asia and Sub-Saharan African countries are not doing well, that a lot of children have to work in the either on the streets or elsewhere, which is against many international conventions or international agreements. And we have today, luckily, have one distinguished representative from the ILO, and I hope Mr. Nejat will elaborate more on this issue about the rights of children, etc., from the perspective of ILO. And also what we see is that I think one of the, let's say, disadvantaged position of the OIC countries, the ongoing conflicts and hotspots in the OIC region, such as we have countries like Yemen, Syria, and Afghanistan. According to one study of CESRIC, which was undertaken, I think, in 2019, have showed that more than 60% of all conflicts in the world happen in the OIC countries. So this is really a big number. And again, consider that the OIC countries representing only around 26% of the world population, but the ongoing conflicts, they represent about 60%. So it is, again, one of the reasons why some countries struggle in terms of addressing the needs of vulnerable groups, including street children. Now I want to go back one important issue, the definitional issue of the street children, because it is very much related with the policy making and also generating data and statistics on street children. According to the UNICEF, there are 3 categories of street children, which are street living children, street working children, and children from street families. Despite this categorization, still there is no any common definition accepted or adopted at the international and regional level. So each OIC country or many other developing countries use their own national definitional standards. And of course, this lack of common understanding also leads difficulty in terms of collecting and reporting standardized data on the number of street children. Just I want to give you one example. For instance, United Nations estimated that there are around 100 million to 150 million street children in the world. So you see, there is 50% difference between the minimum and maximum value. So even the most, let's say, the largest intergovernmental organization cannot provide a realistic picture in terms of the real numbers. Of course, there are some regional estimations or country level estimations. Just I can show you the situation in the OIC countries in terms of estimated numbers of street children over the period 2015-2019. That there are some OIC countries which are hosting a significant amount of street children. For instance, Pakistan and Bangladesh are hosting about 1.5 million street children, both including street living and street working children. So again, these are some estimations, but this can provide us an idea that which countries are having a more desperate situation, especially in terms of number of street children. In the literature, there are a couple of major causes which explain why children go to the streets. Number one item is usually highlighted as the poverty, the conflicts, disasters, and violence at home against children, and of course, restricted education, restricted access to education, and the prevalence of child labor are among the top reasons according to many studies. Of course, family factors, the culture also matters, but also the health conditions such as some pandemics like HIV played some role in some countries because the children lost their parents due to the pandemic, for instance, and therefore they became unprotected and therefore they went on streets in the case of the lack of social measures to protect them. And of course, there is one emerging item, which is COVID-19 pandemic, which is really affecting the number of street living children, but also it is also affecting the negatively their well-being. The already existing numbers of street children has been affected due to the pandemic, and I will say a few words more in upcoming slides on this point. As you all know that the street working or street living children, first of all, they are not protected. Not protected from violence and exploitation. There is no mechanism to protect them against sexual abuse or trafficking. And of course, they are very much open to crime and abuse. And of course, they don't have good access to health facilities and healthcare services. Therefore, their health is under risk. And a lot of them also struggling about the addictions such as drug use and alcohol. So therefore, there are really risks on streets for children, and these risks make their life really worse. And even not only day-to-day lives, but also these risk factors affect their future well-being. Just I want to show you one statement in here, it is supporting my argument here, is that one street children from Sudan says that, for instance, I am roaming and learning bad behavior such as sniffing and stealing, and I think this sentence is very important. He says that I don't have a future. So because if one person says that I don't have any future, he or she can do anything. So this is the unfortunate situation of the street living children, and these children are open to the very much ill-intended organizations or mafia, etc. So they can be abused by this kind of organizations. So therefore, it is really a serious issue for the countries. Therefore, more policy measures are needed. And I think this seminar could play some role to stimulate discussion at the level of OIC and to bring some solutions to the table. In the report that we have published in this topic, we have analyzed and presented a couple of case studies from different OIC countries, including Pakistan, Egypt, Lebanon, Bangladesh, and Turkey. These countries are at different levels of economic and social development, but they also suffer from the street children phenomena at different levels. And of course, there are also different reasons and factors which are affecting these countries. For instance, in the case of Pakistan and Egypt, the poverty or income inequality play a major role. But for instance, in the case of Lebanon and Turkey, which are hosting a significant number of refugees and internally displaced people, such as from Syria and from neighboring countries, because of this influx of people, these countries have started to see the immediate effects of the increased number of street working and street living children. So therefore, new policy measures have to be developed in these countries. And also in these case studies, what we have seen is that the governments of different OIC countries really took this issue into their policy-making agenda and developed different kind of policies to struggle and to fight against this issue. The two main important dimensions, I think, are important. First, they tried to reduce the number of people, reduce the number of street living and street working children, which is really a difficult task because you cannot really make it zero, but at least you can, through some policies, such as in the case of Turkey, the protective families have been put in practice. Some families were listed by the Ministry of Family and Social Affairs of Turkey. Of course, it is based on voluntary approach that they take care of the responsibility of some street working or living children in order to provide a family environment to them and also in order to provide a kind of protection, because the state policies or the public policies have limitations. Without the contribution of the society and the families, it is not really possible to address this solution in 100%. So what I would like to say in this slide, because of time constraint, I cannot go into details of each and every country, but there are a lot of different success stories and successful initiatives in different regions of the OIC. And these good practices, successful initiatives, could be really useful for other OIC countries in addressing this important phenomena. So therefore, I think the intra-OIC cooperation could play an important role. And in fact, we have seen that not only at the national level, but also at the OIC level, the street children issue has been included to the OIC agenda, such as OIC organized 5 sessions on the child. It is official title is Islamic Ministerial Conference on the Child, especially the 4th Islamic Conference, which was held in Baku, pledged a commitment and also included into the Baku Declaration an item about the improving the equal access to decent living conditions for street and urban children in the Islamic world. And in addition to that, also we know that the OIC adopted the Covenant on the Rights of the Child in Islam. It is very much first in it is the domain that is listing the rights of children from the Islamic perspective. So it is really a fundamental resource in this literature, and also this is really a good document in terms of raising awareness, both at the level of public but also at the level of society, because in many OIC countries, the influence of religion is quite high. So therefore, many scholars, the Islamic scholars, can use these kind of documents based on the fundamentals of Islamic sources, can use these arguments to support or to inform the families about the rise of Islam and what families should do to protect their children more from different kind of threats. So finally, the OIC has made efforts to prepare a strategy for the well-being of children in the Islamic world, and the draft version of this document was considered at the OIC's first ministerial conference on social development in 2019 in Istanbul. And I think in the next session of the conference, it is most likely will be adopted after discussions with the member states. And today we have a representative from the ICESCO. ICESCO is in charge of the finalization of this strategic document. And I'm sure maybe Ms. Ramata could add a few more points about the importance and relevance of this strategy for the OIC member states. Now, in this part of presentation, before concluding, I would like to say a few words about the pandemic, because pandemic is not only a health crisis, it has a lot of economic and social implications on the well-being of people, including children and street children. Because, for instance, it has a lot of negative effects on economic growth, trade, investment, but also it has also associated with the high level of unemployment rates in different OIC countries, which put some families into difficult position or stimulated the poverty levels in different OIC countries. Also, the number of abuse and neglect cases and the violence at home increased both for women and for children, especially for the vulnerable groups. So therefore, the pandemic and the containment measures such as curfews, lockdowns, increased the level of stress of people at home, and therefore, according to some initial studies, the number of street children has increased since the beginning of the pandemic. Why the pandemic, or how the pandemic has affected the street children? Suppose that you are street children, you are living on the streets, and the government is saying that you shouldn't go outside, or you shouldn't do any activity on the streets. So you are living under tough conditions, but the measures are just making your life much more difficult. So therefore, it is really a difficult position for them. For instance, because if they don't do any activity or don't walk on the streets to search for food or water, how they can survive? So therefore, the pandemic has affected the living conditions of street children a lot in different dimensions. And because of such as limited healthcare services during the pandemic, even people who has access to these services could not reach out healthcare services. And even these street children could not ask for any additional care. And of course, the lockdown measures affected their well-being in different dimensions, especially some United Nations reports have shown that, for instance, 23 million additional people in the sub-Saharan Africa were pushed into poverty. So don't think that only about the parents' perspective, but the situation of the family really became difficult, that they cannot afford the basic needs of their children, and therefore these children are forced to go to streets, either for working or living. And also, I think one important negative impact of the pandemic is the shift in focus of the existing social programs from the conventional approach to the crisis response. For instance, suppose that before the crisis, there were some programs available to different vulnerable groups, including the street children. And due to the pandemic, now the government's focus is just to the crisis response, how to address immediate impacts of the pandemic. So therefore, the limited resources have to be channeled to the COVID pandemic response plans, and therefore now because of the increased financial pressure, the available resources that can be used for the street living children are much more limited as compared before the pandemic. And of course, out of the school children is very high during the pandemic because distance learning programs or e-solutions for these children or poor families is not always working, especially in the developing world, because they don't have access to internet, they don't have computer, laptops, or smartphones, so therefore a lot of people couldn't complete their studies or couldn't follow up these distance learning solutions during the pandemic. So therefore, we likely to see more street children in upcoming years, especially in the developing countries, including several OIC countries. So in the final slide, I would like to say a few words about the way forward. Especially, I think the OIC countries has a lot of commonalities about the understanding of Islam and the values in Islam, and also in terms of cultural perspectives, they have important sensitivities about the importance of family values and also the rights of children. So therefore, I think we need to highlight these values more and also try to promote these values more with the organization of some public awareness campaigns in the OIC countries. And I think the poverty reduction strategy is always helpful because if you can address poverty, you can have families with more income, and therefore we think that it is most likely that we can see a decrease in the number of street living and street working children. And of course, at the legal level, there are many things to be done in order to protect the rights of children in general, but also in terms of protecting the rights of street working and living children in OIC countries or elsewhere. And I think the last point that I want to say is inter-OIC cooperation, because I see a lot of opportunities there. I try to explain you a few examples from different OIC countries about the inter-OIC cooperation, but in many seminars and workshops that we attend in the domain of children, what we see is that there are really good and best practices that are available in the OIC countries, such as in Malaysia, and we have some countries like in Suriname. But so we don't really see that there is a close link between these countries. They have these success stories which achieve to them to address some important challenges of street children. But if we can, let's say, inform the countries about the already existing efforts and success stories, I'm sure this will stimulate the discussion and encourage OIC countries to cooperate more in also other social dimensions and issues. So therefore, I think this kind of seminars, workshops, and different kind of capacity building programs could help OIC countries to do more in the development of welfare of street living and working children. And I think these children are our future, so therefore we should do our best to invest in our future. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I would be happy to be part of the discussion. If there is any question from the audience, maybe either now or depending on the moderator, we can reply the questions at the end of the discussion. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I really look forward to listen from ICESCO and ILO. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jim, for a very informative and comprehensive presentation on state of street living and street working children in OIC member countries. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will move to our next panelist, Mrs. Ramata Almami. She is joining us remotely. Despite not feeling well, she is joining us, so I would like to thank her and welcome her. Ms. Ramata is the Director of the Human and Social Sciences sector at the Islamic World Educational Scientific and Cultural Organization, ISISCO, which is based in Rabat, Kingdom of Morocco. She is a sociologist with a diverse professional experience and background, around 25 years in international and intergovernmental organizations, where she held strategic positions that have enabled her to have effective influence at the international and regional levels, in particular, strategic networks in Africa, as well as policies and programs for the protection, empowerment, and leadership of youth, women, and vulnerable groups in conflict and crisis countries. Today, we'll hear from Ms. Ramata about the global phenomena of street living and street working children, with a special reference to the Africa. She will also inform us about the programs and initiatives of the ISISCO, which are being designed and implemented to help and support street children in OIC member countries. So let us welcome Ms. Ramata. Floor is yours, madam.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Assalamu alaikum, good evening, good afternoon from Rabat. Distinguished participant, dear OIC and CISRIC team. At the occasion of the important and symbolic World Child Days, I wished on behalf of ISISCO Director General to send all our best wishes of hope for a better world to all children, boys and girls around the world. And coming back to the situation of the street working and street living children in OIC member, I would like to congratulate CISRIC for this important and very critical theme. As we know, the issue of children of the street is a real and a great and a nightmare for most our countries. And reason why I would like to focus my presentation on the children of the street in Africa, knowing that our colleague from CISRIC already shared information on the factor and causes of this phenomena. We all know that despite all our effort, despite the existing international mechanism to protect human rights, rights of children, rights of the most vulnerable people, the United Nations estimate for more than 120 million of children living in the street, and more than 30 million are living in Africa. I think this figure and data really give us another face of the world, humanity that are really facing the issue of protection of children. May I have the presentation, please? Next slide. Okay, what we are seeing now in this map is really we are really worried to see such red picture in our map, knowing that for some country in Africa we don't have to date a reliable data and figure on the situation of children of the street. We know that they are facing many challenges due to their higher number, due to the violence they are facing. We can talk of human traffic, sexual abuse, due to their lack of education, their lack of health. And for ISISCO, when we talk of health, we think of the physical health, we think of the nutritional health, we think of the mental health, we think also to the reproductive health. And because of this listed issues, and because of the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, ISISCO in his new vision has reinforced its policies, strategies and programs in order to propose a holistic and inclusive program for a better well-being and welfare of the most vulnerable people, in particular the children of the street. And in this program, we have included very new important thematic areas such as sport. For us, it's really important to bring sport art, culture in order to support the rehabilitation of these children of the street. The dimension of mental health is also something really important. And ISESCO has developed, new slide please. ISESCO has also developed some program in terms of peace building training. For us, it's really important and key to bring peace building in this issue of children in the street, knowing that they are facing many issues, as I said, violence, day-to-day abuse, lack of social protection. Reason why for us it's really important to focus on this peace building. And in this sense, ASESCO has created an innovative program we call leadership training in peace and security in order to really involve youth, children, and the most vulnerable for better world, for better peace building, and to include also peace building in our approach. In terms of program, ASESCO proposed, as we know, since 2015, we have been implementing the humanitarian, medical and social humanitarian caravan with several support. We have the medical one, we have this healthcare for the children of the street, we have the psychosocial support, we have the food donation, the educational book donation, clothing donation, and usually we give all this support to the most vulnerable people with really focus on children living in the street. We have implemented more than 12 caravan in Africa, and the last one was in Jordan. And because of COVID-19 pandemic constraints, we shift the social medical caravan to the humanitarian caravan, providing urgent and emergency support to the most affected country, giving them food supply, hygienic product in order to support the most vulnerable. And when I talk of most vulnerable, I think of the eldest women, but we should focus on in children on the street. We also have, as part of our program, as I said, ISESCO has proposed an inclusive program for the well-being. And when we talk of well-being, we have to include this multi-sectorial approach. Reason why all our sector work together in ISESCO, coming from the Foresight Center, culture, education, science and technology, social and human sciences, who is in charge of the humanitarian, but also the entrepreneurship program. We combine everything in order to propose a full a set of program with a multi-sectorial approach. And I already talked to the medical caravan. Now we have been implementing a new program on mental health, knowing that, as you know, COVID-19 really revealed as fragilities. We are all fragile now. Living the impact of COVID-19, and the dimension of psychosocial support is a very important one in order to support communities, but also to support the most vulnerable. We talk of the one living in post-conflict countries, but we know that because of COVID-19, we are all in a fragile situation. And this dimension on mental health to support the most vulnerable people, namely the children of the street, in the street, is something very important. Therefore, we'll propose a guide, a psychosocial guide for families and educational actors, and with focus also on children and the most vulnerable in order to guide them on how they can handle this stress, how they can also live and think of a reopening of a world with hope, with solidarity, and also to try to really limit the impact of COVID-19 in our people. And we also have this program called Junior Football All-Star. This program will be implemented next year, inshallah, and with some collaboration with FIFA, with other institutional organizations such as CONFEGES, is a Conference of French Minister of Youth and Sport from Francophone countries. We elaborate, in fact, we have been working with such organization in order to increase the dimension of sport. It's we all know that sport is one of the framework that can really gather people, that can help to recover people, to recover from, to rehabilitate them. Reason why we have included this sport for youth, and we have this special program for children of the street and to rehabilitate them, to support them through sport, but also through arts, having organizing some cultural event, but also some artistic program in order to support them to live together, better live together, and without any segregation. We also have, as part of our program, the mobile hospital. It will be a new program that will come really to reinforce our humanitarian program. And we think that all these programs combining, as I said, in order to summarize, to combine educational support, to combine the peace building program, bringing also this sport and culture aspect, and in order to have at the end of the day really an inclusive program that can help these children to think of a better world, but also to live as a normal as all children in the world. And in terms of recommendation, we really want to emphasize on the proposal made by our colleague from CISRIC when we talk of an awareness campaign to fight and promote Islamic value. We think that this element is a very important one, because when in any of our sub-Saharan countries right now, either in Senegal, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Chad, Niger, we cannot walk in the street without seeing, unfortunately, the children in the street we call Taliban. And many of Quranic schools also use Islam to let these children in the street. Reason why it's really important to highlight, promote, and valorize our Islamic value and recommendation in terms of protecting people, with a special attention to women, children, and when I talk of children, for me, it's also girls and boys, knowing that girls are more vulnerable in most of our country. It will be also important to think of a better coordination between OIC institution for joint program. I think today it's important really to see, to identify the innovative and good practices that can enable us to have really to think of how to scale up this program in our country in order to have more efficiency program for the protection of children. And to this end, we invite all institutions to join our holistic and inclusive program that combine really well-being, welfare, mental health, nutritional health, reproductive health, that combine peace building, educational support, cultural support, but also bringing sport and arts to support our communities with a special attention to girls and boys. I really thank you for this very important event, and reiterate our availability to work with you in order to strengthen OIC program and OIC support in our member states. Thank you so much.
Very much, Ms. Ramata Almame, for your insightful presentation and sharing your institutional experience with us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will move to our third panelist, Mr. Nejat Kocabe, who is joining us remotely again from Ankara. He's Senior Program Officer at the International Labour Organization Office for Turkey, where he oversees and coordinates work on social policy, development cooperation, social and economic integration of disadvantaged groups. He has been working with the International Labour Organization since April 1998. He has 30 years of experience, over 90 years of which is management and leadership experience in project management and execution. And currently he manages and coordinates a portfolio including ILO's response to refugee crisis and elimination of worst forms of child labor. Floor is yours, Mr. Kojabe.
Thank you very much, distinguished chair. Good afternoon to all. I would like to greet all participants and panelists from Ankara with highest respect. Thanks to CESRIC for making available this session on a hybrid model. As I cannot make it for now, I hope I can attend in person to other events on other occasions. World Children's Day we are celebrating today, as Mr. Ramata mentioned, is much important to promote international togetherness, awareness among children worldwide, and improving children's welfare. Since 1990, World Children's Day marks the anniversary of the date that the UN General Assembly adopted both the Declaration of the Rights of the Child and the Convention on Children's Rights. World Children's Day offers each of us an inspirational entry point to advocate, promote, and celebrate children's rights, translating into dialogues and actions that will build a better world for children. By saying that, I would like to congratulate CESRIC to hold this important event on such an important date and occasion. In my presentation, I would like to focus on elimination of child labor in Turkey, with particular emphasis on children working on the streets. I will try to structure it a bit as time allows and start with a broader definition, causes, consequences, trends, and the ILO Office for Turkey and Turkish government's response to the problem, and conclude with some recommendations. I hope I can complement the comprehensive presentations that was made by Cembe and Ms. Ramata. Let me start by brief information on ILO. The ILO is a specialized agency of the United Nations for the world of work. It sets international labor standards, promotes rights at work, encourages decent employment opportunities, the enhancement of social protection, and the strengthening of dialogue on work-related issues. Since the ILO's founding in 1919, child labor has been a core concern. The ILO's International Program on the Elimination of Child Labor, which is so-called IPEC, was created in 1992 with the overall goal of the progressive elimination of child labor, which was to be achieved through strengthening the capacity of countries to deal with the problem and promoting a worldwide movement to combat child labor. Currently, operations in over 88 countries with technical cooperation projects. The largest program of its kind globally and the biggest single operational program of the ILO. And Turkey was one of the first 6 countries to participate in ILO's international program on the child elimination of child labor in 1992. The program support delivered by ILO was formulated jointly with the Turkish government in coherence with national policies and objectives. The ILO Office for Turkey has been providing technical assistance to government of Turkey since the participation of IPEC program. And from the very beginning, various programs, projects in the areas of capacity building, promoting and coordinating partnerships, improving legislation and enforcement, building and using the knowledge base on child labor, awareness raising and social dialogue has been developed. Structuring a national time-bound policy and program framework for the elimination of worst forms of child labor, nation's strategy for the elimination of child labor developed by the government covering the years of 2017 to 2023, and also supported incorporating into development plans has been maintained. And since that time, I can easily say that Turkey has been highly effective in reducing incidences of child labor and has made substantial progress in ensuring children's rights with technical support of the ILO. For a broader definition, Cem presented very well the children working on the streets, street living children definitions. I would like to focus more broader one, and we can define child labor. Not all work done by children should be classified as child labor. The term child labor is often defined as work that deprives children of their childhood, their potential and their dignity, and that's harmful to physical and mental development. It refers to work that mentally, physically, socially, or morally dangerous and harmful to children, interferes with their schooling by depriving them of the opportunity to attend school, obliging them to leave school prematurely, or requiring them to attempt to combine school attendance with excessively long and heavy work. Considerable differences exist between the many kinds of work children do. Some are difficult and demanding, others are more hazardous and even morally reprehensible. Children carry out a wide range of tasks and activities when they work. Children's or adolescents' participation in work that does not affect their health and personal development or interfere with their schooling is generally regarded as being something positive. This includes activities such helping their parents around the home, assisting in a family business, or earning pocket money outside school hours and during school holidays. These kind of activities contribute to children's development and to the welfare of their families. They provide them with skills and experience and help to prepare them to be productive members of society during their adult life. In its most extreme forms, child labor involves children being enslaved, separated from their families, exposed to serious hazards and illnesses, and or left to fend for themselves on the streets of large cities, often at a very early age. Whether or not particular forms of work can be called child labor depends on the child's age, the type, and hours of work performed, the conditions under which it is performed, and the objectives pursued by individual countries. The answer varies from country to country as well as among sectors within countries. In order to better understand those definitions and to respond to legislative needs, the ILO has developed a normative framework through two fundamental conventions, Convention 138 and Convention 182. Convention 138, the minimum age for admission to employment, refers to a basic minimum age to admit for employment. And Convention 182, Worst Forms of Child Labor Convention, refers to hazardous work, and this prohibits any work which is likely to jeopardize physical, mental, or moral well-being of a child under the age of 18, either because of its nature or because of conditions in which it is carried out, is named as hazardous work. Turkey has signed both conventions and developed at the first instance a national time-bound policy and program. With 10 years of experience, the program was revised and updated for covering the period of 2017 to 2023. The primary target groups of national program on the elimination of child labor in Turkey were determined, the worst forms, as children working on the streets, working in heavy and hazardous works in small and medium-sized enterprises, working in mobile and temporary agricultural labor, except for family business. The problem of children working on the streets in Turkey is directly related to the structural problems of the country. Migration from rural areas, rapid urbanization, uncontrolled population growth, and inequalities in income distribution are among the main causes of this problem. Due to massive immigration, large numbers of immigrants have been reached to big cities, and children of these families who have migrated completely unprepared to the cities have found themselves working on the streets under unprotected conditions with the aim of contributing to the family budget. When the general profile of children working on the streets is examined, it is very clearly seen that these children constitute a group of highly sensitive working children, and even that is the area in need of primary intervention. It's an observed phenomenon that these children are open to all risks and dangers on the streets and are becoming prone to crime over time. Children used to work in shoe polishing, selling materials such as paper, tissue, chewing gum, water, bagel, corn, national lottery tickets, stationery supplies, car window cleaning, water transportation in cemeteries, grave cleaning, garbage collection, selling flowers, books, and supplies. Works they do generally requires them to be in crowded city centers and in hazardous environments. At first glance, besides working on the street, seems as if it was not that heavy and hazardous condition for areas such as selling handkerchiefs, books, vegetables, fruits, and so on. But when it's investigated in depth, it affects the physical, mental, physiological development of them negatively, as they involve in work up to 14 hours a day and 7 days a week, with a lot of risks they are facing. And Cem has mentioned in detail. I can pass those information here with for the sake of use time on a better way. The Turkish government, through its national program on the elimination of child labor, has valuable progress in reducing the incidences in all sectors, including street work. The national programs aims to carry out activities for the elimination of child labor, which have serious adverse effects on the physical, corporal, mental, social, and moral development of children within the framework of a holistic and participatory national program. Actions and measures were developed within this program, and basic strategies and activities are assigned to responsible institutions and organizations. Basic approach in addressing the issue of children working on the streets is to prevent them from working and ending up in the street in the first place. Therefore, protective and preventive actions are being prioritized. At the heart of the preventive and protective actions lies the empowerment of the family. The national programs aims a more effective protective system to be developed for children working on the street through involvement of central government, local administrations, and non-governmental organizations. Means of cooperation and coordination between various organizations working in this field is being encouraged for necessary identification, referral, and monitoring of child laborers. May I can conclude with some statistical information. The Turkish Statistical Institute, Turkstat, has been conducted 5 child labor surveys since 1994 in years of 94, 99, 2006, 2012, and 2019. And when we go back to 1994, the incidences, the ratio was about 15.2% at that time and reached with a significant decline to 4.4% in 2019. But still, there is long way to go and too much to do, as there has been with this statistical information 720,000 working children are still in Turkey. The sectoral distribution of those children could be given as 30% in agriculture, 23% in industry, and 45% takes place in services, which also involves children working on the streets. And the gender composition can be given as 70% of working children are boys and 30% of them are girls. When speaking of child laborers, it's important to go beyond the concepts of work hazards and risks and to expand them to include the development aspects of childhood. Because children are still growing, they have special characteristics and needs that must be taken into consideration when determining hazards and the risks associated with them in terms of physical, cognitive, and behavioral development and emotional growth. Finally, I can summarize some recommendations for OIC countries based on the learnings from Turkey. The strategy for elimination of child labor should mainly prioritize on rural and informal economies, enterprises and global and domestic supply chains, situations of crisis and fragility, through activities in following action areas: empowerment and representation, public policies, governance, enforcement and protection, partnership and advocacy, knowledge and data could be spelled out as respective action areas. And when it comes to partnership and advocacy, effective action by employers and workers organizations, strengthened partnerships with UN agencies, inter-OIC and other stakeholders collaborations would be crucial. And improved knowledge sharing and evaluation of emerging practices would help to improve the action against child labor in the region, in country, and as well as in global levels. Let me stop by here. Thank you very much for your patience, and I would be available for any comments, queries in discussion session, Mr. Moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nejat Kojabay, for your excellent presentation and sharing the Turkish experience as well as programs and initiatives of International Labour Organization to address this phenomena of street living and street working children. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard from our three distinguished panelists. We have heard a lot of insightful data and statistics information. I'm sure we had received a good dose of food for thought. So now floor is open for the general discussion. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand so that the mic could be provided to you. Before making your intervention, please do introduce yourself. Thank you. Okay.
Yes. Hi. I have a very simple question. My name is Nafisat. I'm originally from India. I am a student. I also work as a learning support assistant. So I work with children with disabilities here in a school in Dubai. My question is very simple. How can I, as a young individual, as a citizen, do something towards this phenomenon that is in discussion today, the situation of street working and street living children. So how can I, as an individual, do anything in order to ease their condition or in order to contribute towards this phenomenon? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Based on presentations, I also had a question. It might be a little bit different from the question raised by Nafisa, where she talked about the individual and what can the individual do. So to build on that question also, at the state level, how those OIC countries can cooperate together in order to find some solutions. So that would be also my question to the panelists. Thank you very much.
You. So for time being, we can try to get the answers for these two questions. And meanwhile, maybe we'll have some more queries. So the first question is that as an individual, as a civilian, what can be done to ease the suffering of street living and street working children, or play a role to eliminate this phenomena in a country setting or in a regional or international level, doesn't matter. So the question is open to or is posed to all panelists, I would say, and anyone who would like to take the initiative is welcome. So as an individual, what can be done to contribute positively to solve this issue?
Okay. May I contribute?
Please, Madam.
Okay. Thank you for this very important appeal coming from youth to say that what can I do? What can I do to support and to protect and to fight against this phenomena? From my thinking as individual, it's important at individual and also at community level. It's important to say zero tolerance for children living in the street. Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance means for us one, helping, supporting any child living in the street, giving him support, giving him food support, hygienic product in this context of COVID-19, but also see how you also can join awareness campaign in order to strengthen the effort we have been doing. For me, zero tolerance means from the community level to the strategic and policy level, try to contribute to join some program in order to amplify our voice to fight children of the industry, because, as I said, we have many studies, researchers, many findings that can really help us to find a solution. But until now, we know that despite all our efforts, the phenomenon remains. And if at community level we can be able to join all our effort to say zero tolerance, that can be a good sense, and not just waiting a special celebration day such as World Child Day to talk about this. I think we have to talk on this issue in our day-to-day intervention at policy level, at strategic level, at community level, at all level, parliamentary, and at all level, we need just to be there. This is just my point of view for you as young people, hoping that as a young people you have also the future is under your hand, and maybe you will be the next leader in your country, and then you'll have the fully opportunity for you to contribute and to change the life of these children of the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I compliment
Please, Mr.
Ms.
Nejat.
Ramata? I fully agree with this zero tolerance approach, and thanks for Nefisa's sensitivity with this respect. I can recommend this differs depending on the services available at the country level, but some kind of referral to social services, to security forces, to education departments are always something that an individual can play a role. Apart from this, taking a place, being a part of an NGO or some kind of educational supplementary activities involving towards children working and living on the streets would also be helpful for this young, dedicated persons like Nefisa, I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nejat. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you for these two questions. For the first question, I think as an individual you can do a lot. Why? Because the social and economic development starts at the level of individual person, then it goes towards the top, the policy makers, etc. So as an individual, first you can inform your friends and colleagues about the importance of the topic, which is a kind of awareness raising in the society. So this is through your individual efforts, perhaps more people can involve in the process. This is number one. Second thing is that, sorry, you can be part of some non-governmental organizations, and through volunteerism activities, you can reach out more people. This is also another way of, as an individual, that you can do. And also the third point is that you can also influence the policymakers' decision, because as a citizen you have to right to vote, right? So the political parties, for instance, who are more interested in the topic or who are developing policies for the development of the well-being of these people, these street children, you can, let's say, support them, and therefore through your individual activism and also through your friends' votes, maybe you can, over the long run, change the course of development of this person. So this is my reaction to the first question. The second question, can I say something?
Please proceed.
For the second question, I think it is a very pertinent question, how OIC countries can cooperate for the development of the street children. In fact, there are many ways and platforms at the level of OIC. First of all, OIC is organizing now a ministerial conference on social development. The first edition or session was organized in 2019 in Istanbul, and in each conference there is an agenda item on children. And under this agenda item, the countries can propose some draft resolutions for the discussions and consideration of the OIC member countries. So therefore, this is one way of enhancing cooperation at the level of OIC. And during also my presentation, I have already mentioned that OIC is in the process of finalizing a strategy on the well-being of children in OIC countries. And this strategy is a very comprehensive one. It has a lot of dimensions such as improving the well-being of children in the healthcare sector, in education sector, but also it is providing some recommendations for the member states or providing some guidance how they can improve the situation of different segments of children, such as displaced children, such as children with disabilities, such as street working and street living children. So therefore, with the support of the member states, once this strategy is adopted, we will have a very comprehensive, broad guidance document ahead of us. In addition to that, the OIC relevant institutions like the ICESCO, Madame Ramata has already presented a couple of programs of ICESCO, different OIC institutions like CESRIC, for instance. Today we are organizing a seminar, we have prepared a report. So different OIC institutions exerting some efforts and in order to enhance inter-OIC cooperation and also to inform the member states about the importance of the topic and also provide some guidance. So therefore, there are some already ongoing efforts and I hope that in near future we will have, with the adoption of this strategy on children, we will have a much more, let's say, legal basis for cooperation at the level of the OIC. So these are some of the foods for thought, and thank you very much for giving me the chance.
Thank you. Anyone would like to add anything regarding how to improve intra-IC cooperation? Okay. Thank you. Any more questions, please?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate CESRIC for this important report and event. It is always for the betterment of illnesses. Always you have to understand what the problem is, where the problem lies at a strategic level, so you can address it at the lower levels. It was a very interesting presentation by all participants. It was also very clear to see the three levels, the three different aspects of street children in there. Overall, looking at it, you see that certain aspects need to be addressed by government. Certain aspects need to be addressed by civil society. They both have their roles to play on improving the status of street children. So, first part of my question is, how do you see the status of NGOs within OIC countries with respect to this issue and their role, of course? That's my first question. Second question is about the definitions that I addressed earlier. The three levels. One of them is the children who live completely on the streets. And you also addressed, Mr. Titin, in your presentation, the prevalence of conflict in OIC countries. There's one subtitle to it that I would like to hear more from, especially perhaps from Ms. Almami as well, because it's an issue that you see mostly in African continent as well, as to my previous experience, my previous posting. Is the child soldiers, which also end up, many of them end up living in the streets. This has not been addressed in the presentation, and since I see that there's a prevalence to conflict in the OIC countries, how do you see this issue? Because it's also an issue that societies react to very often, because child soldiers can also be a further threat to social order. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Again, there is one question somehow addressed to Ms. Ramata. We can start with that about the children's of war or child soldiers. In the context of Africa, you might have done some research or some work in this domain.
Thank you so much for the question. In fact, our focus is on vulnerable people, vulnerable children, and for us, it's children living in conflict areas, in post-conflict areas. In fact, people, children who live without peace. Reason why we have proposed this new approach on peace. In fact, we have revisited the paradigm of peace, of human capital, positioning peace as the beginning, as a foundation of all development. And our approach on peace give, in fact, an inclusive approach coming from the educational, the cultural, the social, financing, economic, climate change component. For us, peace is not absence of war, peace of absence of well-being, of welfare. It's absence of living together, as we said in French, le vivre ensemble. And for us, peace means lack of solidarity. For us, lack of peace means lack of solidarity. Lack of peace means all this conflict. Children are also facing in their families, because we can have as a form of war. Without we have also wars children are facing in their families when their parents are not living in harmony, where they have any protection from their community. From ISISCO understanding, that's where we talk of peace, where we both talk of peace building. And in this sense, we don't have to date specific researchers elaborate or produced by ASESCO in children in war or children living in countries of the war, because we have some specialized organizations that are working on that. Just in summary, to say that for us, war is not lack of peace is not only means wars, but means, as I said, lack of peace, lack of serenity, lack of harmony, lack of social cohesion in our community. Reason why we have developed this program we call, as I already said, the leadership training in peace and security, that enable us this year to train, to identify and train 30 youth ambassadors of peace, 30 youth coming from 24 countries around the world, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from Malaysia, from Cameroon, from many countries, 30 countries, 24 countries, 30 youths that have been trained during one semester in different aspects of peace building. What is really peace building? And these youths, 30 youths we call ISISCO peace ambassador, will be the advocate to bring peace building, to talk on one voice, to talk of one humanity, to bring that youth and children can be together without any cultural, linguistic, but also as a perspective barriers. That is why we are working for, we have also proposed a new program we have called a new model of society we have called the Society We Want, aims at building peaceful societies, prosperous societies, but also resilient society. But it's important to talk about resilience. The issue of, for me, peace building that have to bring us also to talk of resilience. We have how many wars we have, how many conflicts humanity are facing. And right now, COVID-19 really was the latest one that break our hope and change our way of doing. And all this program with this Society Work initiative aims at bringing together people to have this living together, this vivre ensemble, to share and to have mutual sharing in terms of cultural, religious, and also to showcase that Islam is a religion of peace. This is something really key, and we are working on our policies program to develop and to train youth, to train women, and also to involve religious leaders for more peaceful society, and showcasing that war not only means arms, but war, we have also wars within our community, in our family, and we have to think of how to build our humanity through peace building, solidarity, social cohesion, harmony between sister, brothers, between parents, and between organizations. I hope my reports will guide you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. The second question, I may direct it to Mr. Nejat, if you like to answer. It's about the role of NGOs and civil society in addressing this particular issue in the context of OIC member countries, but maybe given your experience in Turkey, you may give us some ideas about how we can involve the NGOs and civil society in this particular area.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The role of NGO is crucial indeed for as a pressure group and as well as making necessary interventions towards the decision makers. Therefore, it would be great whether an OIC country which does not yet approved such international conventions, including Convention 138, 182, and others. And this 182 is directly related with what Mr. Ramata has also mentioned with respect to this child soldiers issue. This is also very important in means of approving the conventions and making the national legislation align with international conventions helps the governments to cope with this kind of issues, and the force of the NGOs makes available the policy advocacy measures as well in this respect. Also, I can raise the data collection and the data that is being collected through NGOs in Turkey always helps the policymakers to make their decisions, to transfer this information through all the channels to government officials, as well as there has been ways to represent it in Turkish Grand Assembly. Therefore, those type of interventions could be possible as means of NGO involvement to the process.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, with this, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank all of our respected, valued presenters for sharing really excellent insights on risks and challenges faced by children who live and work on streets, highlighting various socio-economic policy measures to address these challenges and risks, as well as informing us about various national, regional, and international initiatives and programs which are geared towards enhancing the welfare of street living and street working children in OIC member countries. I would also like to thank all participants who have joined us and were part of our deliberations. I strongly believe that presentations and discussions we had today will not only enhance our understanding of the scale and severity of the prevailing situation, but also encourage us to find innovative ways and means to address the phenomena of street living and street working children in OIC member countries. With this, I would like to thank once again our panelists and the audience and close the forum. Thank you.